All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. Today, we're going to do the other side of the football. If you didn't watch our last video, we projected the starting lineup on the defensive side of the ball. So, as I said, today we're going to go on the other side, all offense for this video, projecting the starters. I think while we might think it's easy and pretty straightforward, this side of the ball might have more debate to it when it comes to what everyone thinks, especially on the offensive line, because as we're about to see, it's made up of a lot of transfers. But before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, follow us on all social media. All of it is linked down below, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcast. Make sure to hit the comment section and let us know what you think about the starting lineup that we put together here. Let's not delay it any longer. Let me get this up here for us. All right. Here we go. So we can start with the easy one. Jackson Arnold, QB1. Pretty straightforward. I guess there we can talk about what you had projected as his backup versus what I have projected. I personally think it's Michael Hawkins. Brandon, what about you?
I went Casey Thompson. I know we didn't see Casey Thompson in the spring game at all. I don't know why. Or maybe they're holding him out for whatever reason. But I think him just being in college for 6 or 7 years now. It feels like he's got a ton of experience. He's a legacy. But I mean, more than anything, I think that experience just wins out. I think it's really tough to get that backup job as a true freshman.
Yeah, and that's definitely fair. Like the only reason I'm going towards Hawkins is because I think Casey is more limited. Uh, he is experienced, so he has that to him. But him and Mike have the same amount of experience at this point in this offense, with this group of guys, with this coaching staff. So uh, while it may sound crazy, because as you said, he is a true freshman, and it's going to be a little tougher for him to gain that job. I think he looked really good in the spring game. I know Casey didn't play, and I believe it's because he's recovering from an injury, but he looked good in the spring game. People have been raving about him all spring practice. Summer hasn't quite started. Um, Summer practices haven't quite started, but I have a feeling that he's just going to get more and more comfortable with this offense and could take that number two position down the line. At least that's my hope, because saying Casey Thompson as a number two, for whatever reason, brings back bad memories of it being Davis Bevel instead of Nick Evers as the number two. But that's not a conversation we got to have today. Um, Running back, another one that I think you and I say is an easy choice, but maybe others may disagree. Gavin Sawchuk, RB
Yeah.
one. Brandon, kick it over to you on your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gavin Sawchuk's got that job pretty much wrapped up. I think he had a pretty darn good season last year. I think he's going to look to pick up where he left off pretty much. There's a lot of talent there, a lot to like with Gavin Sawchuk. Um, I have behind him Samuel Franklin, who I think is
Yeah,
going to be number two. But that's going to be I think a lot of rotation there between Sam Franklin and Javante Barnes. And I think we won't really know who the true number two is until about midway through the season.
and honestly, we might never really have a true number two. I know it's going to be a different offense, uh, and the guy calling the plays is completely different. If this was Jeff Levy, I think we could say we might never really know who's running back one, because he did like to rotate so much. And you know, love it or hate it, that was how the system worked, and that's one thing that a lot of people liked when he first got hired. The running backs were going to be involved, and they were all going to have pretty good statistics. But while none of them might show us the bell cow, they all were pretty good. Gavin Sawchuk last year definitely made it easy for all of us as fans to get behind him. Super talented, had big games, looked like a guy that could take 80% of the carries there and just have someone subbing him in to get so he can catch his breath after some bigger plays that he makes. Uh, but I do think it's going to be a Javante Barnes slash Sam Franklin back there. And if we see Caleb Hicks every once in a while, that wouldn't surprise me either, because he has grown a lot since his freshman year, going into his redshirt freshman year in this fall. Now moving over to tight end, I think this is where it can be a little bit more up in the air. it seems like Bauer Sharp is the guy that's going to get that number one spot to begin the season. But I am still of the belief that if Devon Mitchell gets more opportunities, he's going to be the guy that should be tight end one by mid-season.
That see, I mean, I think Devon Mitchell has unlimited potential and unlimited talent, but like, let's not forget that Devon Mitchell is a guy who's supposed to be a senior in high school right now. He is very young, very, very, very young to be out there playing. Right away. I don't see it. I wouldn't hate it, but I just don't see it quite this early in his career. I think Bauer Sharp's probably the guy. Maybe Jake Roberts at two. Could this be the year that we finally get to see some Caden Helms action? We still don't know what Caden Helms is going to bring to the table. He hasn't, he's had a lot of injury issues since committing to Oklahoma. We have not been able to really see him on the field and produce yet. The tight end room, I think we do lean Bauer Sharp at the moment, but I don't know if that anybody really has a that job really locked down. Like, Jackson Arnold's Jackson Arnold. Gavin Sawchuk's probably going to be the guy there. I think that tight end room can kind of shuffle in and out. Obviously, depending on performances, I think a lot of guys will get an opportunity there, but I think we're going to start with Bauer Sharp.
Yep, and then you also have the other transfer, Jake Roberts, transferring in, also a guy that with experience. Um, you have there's when you look at it on paper, that room has quality depth. It just once you get past the guys that have had experience in college football, you don't know what you really have outside of the potential that we all expect them to play up to. But my biggest gripe against Coach Finley and how he's handled that room is that he really hasn't given those young guys an opportunity to show what they can do. Every year that he's been there, since Willis, I know it's only been a couple of years, but he brings in a transfer, and then that transfer doesn't really perform. I mean, it was Stogner last year. He didn't do well. Why not give a guy like Llewellyn more go? But he ended up transferring because he felt, I mean, it was pretty clear if you follow anything on social media, specifically on Twitter, he was not very happy with how little he got to play last year. And it was pretty clear to anyone that watched OU football that the tight end, Stogner just wasn't going to be the guy to change the game for Oklahoma at the tight end position. We'll never know what Llewellyn can be as a Sooner, but if I were to point to any coach that might not have it fully figured out, it's Coach Finley. But he is the co-offensive coordinator, so he's gotta shape up. You can't be making mistakes now as one of the lead guys.
I think my only argument against that is when it comes to Austin Stogner last year, is he was a guy that was productive for us before he obviously left for South Carolina. I don't know that the tight end position was utilized correctly under Jeff Levy's offense. And I think with Joe John being a guy calling the plays, or helping call the plays now with Seth Luttrell, that those tight ends are going to be more heavily involved going forward. I think they'll be able to showcase their talents a little bit more than they did under the previous regime.
And I think that's a fair point because even Willis wasn't used a ton. I think he was used a little bit more than Stogner, but nothing crazy. We'll see what happens there. I think that is a position in my head when you look at the skill positions that can change a lot between game 1 and game 6, where we're not really going to know who the guy is until we get to OU Texas and someone proves that it should be them as tight end 1 and someone else coming in to back them up. Uh,
I definitely agree with that.
when they need some time. Let's go to the wide receivers. This is again maybe not a lot of debate when it comes to the starting trio, but I think some people might have a little bit different opinion on who the third guy should or will be. Brandon here, we have Farouk, Deion Burks transfer from Purdue, and then a young star, Nick Anderson. Um, you want to? I'll hand it over to you. What this was basically, you put this together, but I agreed. What was your two deep, and what was your thought process there when you put that together?
Well, seeing it now, I'm going to go back to our text here, but I think I had a Andrell over Nick Anderson. to start the game. But this is the deepest position on the team. I think this is. I've compared it to the lot to the CD Lamb, Hollywood Brown type years. I think this is the deepest receiving room we've had since that year, since Baker Mayfield in 2017, where that team probably should have won it all. I think that this receiver room has just unlimited potential here, and these are just. I think the three that start the game are going to be Farouk, Deion Burks, and Andrew Anthony. We saw what Andrew Anthony was doing last season before he got hurt. He was leading the team in receiving yards. He was the clear number one there. Deion Burke, I think he showed a lot in the spring game about his connection with Jackson Arnold, what they're already developing there, and how he's going to be deadly. And then Jalil Farouk's just kind of reliable out there now. He's been there a minute. But then you got a lot of talent backing those guys up. I mean, Nick Anderson's going to play a lot. The dude scored like 12 touchdowns last season. He's not going to stop. I think Brennan Thompson's a guy that might get some opportunity in the slot too when Deion Burke needs to sit for a couple snaps or whatever. Jaden Gibson's still there. This receiving core is so deep. There's a lot of weapons out there. There's going to be a lot of rotation. But I think my initial starting three are going to be Deion Burks, Andrew Anthony, and Jalil Farouk.
Yeah, you're right. You did put Andrell. I don't know why I read Anderson, but I do think it's Nick Anderson that gets a starting spot opposite of Jalil and Dion. Um, I think Andrell will start to play more and maybe start taking some of the snaps from Farouk. If he doesn't, Farouk, I think this season needs to become more Drake Stoops when it comes to how reliable he can be, and let Nick and Dion be the big play guys. Seems like Farouk for the last couple of seasons, and you and I were on this on his bandwagon. Like we thought he was gonna be the guy, like CD Lamb, DD Westbrook kind of guy for Oklahoma. And not that he hasn't been good, but he hasn't been that level of good. I think at this point, Nick Anderson and Deion Burks are leaning more towards that kind of star power, and Jalil is more Mr. Reliable, Drake Stoops, Sterling Shepard, a guy that you know is going to be there and is going to catch the ball when you need him to in the moments in which you need him to make a play. Uh, but I think Andrell can be the guy to come in and take some snaps when you need a big play. If you're ever down, he's going to be someone that can take the top off, assuming that his knee feels 100% and he's 100% confident. Because if you ever hear professional athletes talk about injuries, especially knee injuries, it's not so much the fact that their knee can't or doesn't feel right. It's like the mental block. Like you don't want to fuck up your knee again. Excuse me, mess up your knee again. Um, and it's the fact like is he gonna feel confident enough in what his body will allow him to do to take off full speed like he was last year before his injury? Because before his injury he was clearly the number one guy, and
Mhm.
there's an argument that could be made that after his injury that's where the offense really started to make a lot more mistakes because there wasn't that guy to just completely take the top off the defense.
I think there's no doubt about that. I think the offense took, a I don't want to say a large step back, but a pretty decent sized step back whenever whenever Andrell went out. That was a big loss, big loss for Oklahoma.
I don't even think you mentioned Quez Petaway, one of your favorite younger receivers, when you were
Love
going through the
Jaquez.
depth there.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to I think him and Thompson are the guys that are kind of battling for that um, last slot, if you will, because I think the other six guys we talked about, Nick Anderson's going to play, Jalil Farouk's going to play, Deion Burks is going to play, um, Andrew Anthony, whatever, the guys we talked about, Jaden Gibson, he's going to play. We've got our guys that are 100% locks to play, and I think Brennan Thompson and Jalil Farouk or not Jalil Farouk, Jaquez Petaway are kind of fighting there for that last little bit of playing time. I
Yeah,
don't know.
like
I still would love to see Jaquez, but it's deep.
the depth there's a lot, and there's a lot of young talent behind him too, and a lot more guys coming in the 2025 class. So it's not going to get any easier, but I do think he will get the leg up at some point, probably after this year. He just has to look promising in the time that he does get to play, uh, however often that is. Now
Agreed.
Let's go to the offensive line, because when I was putting this together, this is where clearly there's going to be all eyes here, because you look at it and we're looking at this graphic. You have four transfer players and 5 guys that haven't played a second of actual meaningful snaps together. They've practiced, I'm sure, a lot. This is our projection, so maybe this isn't exactly a group that gets a lot of go when it comes to as a unit of 5. But um, you've got a lot of new faces here, and every face is new outside of not just new to the program, but new to the starting lineup. Brandon, what was your thought process here? I think I 100% agree on what you put here together for tackle to tackle. I think this is what we should expect to see when opening day comes.
Yeah, so this obviously is going to be the big question mark. I think this is where people are going to have their own opinions and kind of disagree. I think for the most part, with the receivers, running backs, quarterback, obviously, I think most people are going to agree. I think that's pretty set in stone there. But when you're replacing 5 dudes on the offensive line, that's where it gets tricky. And I want experience here. I want experience over potential, if you will, because I think all the guys that we've the Josh Bates of the world and stuff like that have the talent and the potential, but they haven't played it all yet. And I think when you bring in this many transfers, and a lot of these guys are, every single one of them is guys who have started at a Power Five level. Obviously, Jake Sexy's not a transfer, but he's a guy that's played the most. He's probably been the most productive of that 2022 class that we had as far as offensive line goes. I think with Gary and Hatchett, he's a guy that started at Washington, knows how to win. Spencer Brown started right tackle at Michigan State. Branson Hickman's a guy that at SMU was pretty damn dominant. He had 517 pass blocking snaps last year, didn't allow a single sack. I think he's an immediate plug and play. And Fabechi Nuwawu, I probably messed that name up, but he's a guy that was a former all freshman Conference USA. He's got familiarity with Seth Little's offense coming from North Texas. I think you just plug and play your most experienced guys. I think they give you the best shot right away. And that's kind of how I put this together.
Yeah. I think that when I'm looking at it and what you put together, I can see it happening. The ones I for sure agree with are both tackles. Spencer Brown, I mean, he's been a right tackle his entire collegiate football career, and he's done well on that side of the ball. So there's no reason to try to fix what's not broken there. Leave him at right tackle, let him protect that side of the ball. Uh, Big Sexy, that one makes sense too. He's played left tackle his freshman year. He played well in the opportunities he got to play, and he looked like he was going to be the future of the left tackle position until he hurt or until he tore his ACL in the bowl game his freshman year. And Branson Hickman, I agree 100% with what you said. Joshua Bates is a promising young player at that position, and I think he did well during the spring game. If it wasn't for needing depth there and Branson Hickman really getting into the portal, because Oklahoma would have gone after someone that can play center, but would have given Joshua Bates a better chance at taking the starting spot. But because it was Branson Hickman, because it was someone that was so experienced at that spot, and Oklahoma was able to land him, now it kind of delays Joshua Bates' coming out party by a year, assuming Branson can stay healthy for all football season. He does seem like the penciled in starter at the center spot. The guards, though, that's where I think you can see a lot more mix up. There haven't really been guards that stood out in the past for Oklahoma that are still on the roster. Fabechi, like you said, he's familiar with the Latrell offense, so he has that leg up. But Gary and Hatchett, I think I could see Jake Taylor being there. He's been there for a few years now. 2022 class, like Jake Sexton, he's played in previous season and he's played well. The assumption is he's getting better every year. He's got more opportunities every year, and I really think I could see Jake Taylor taking that spot as the right guard next to between Spencer and Branson there. Um, but I guess that's really the guards are where I can see it there being more mix up or more debate on who should be starting versus the backups.
For sure. I think it's going to be interesting to see in the comment section here. I'm ready to see what everybody has for their offense. But, I think at the end of the day, I think this offense, with all the weapons that it has, it goes as far as this line will allow it. Because, I mean, the pieces are around Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold has all the tools. He's obviously young, so we'll see how that goes in his first complete year as a starter. But Um, all the tools are there to be a very successful offense. It just comes down to if this brand new offensive line pretty much is going to hold up on their end.
Yeah, exactly. And last thing, just like we did in the defense, what who is a dark horse on the offensive side of the ball where you think has a legit shot at taking a starting spot, let's say by week 6 by OU Texas? I think that's week 6.
Can I say Jaquez Petaway? Even though I don't think he'll be a guy who starts, but I think he's a guy that is, a third down situational type receiver that plays a decent amount. And maybe an Eddie Pierre Louis, if you want to get really fun. I think that guy he's obviously a freshman too, and I just kind of knocked Devon Mitchell for that, but he's a true freshman. He's finished his senior year of high school, but he's a guy that just looks freaky. And if this offensive line isn't holding up, I think they're going to try just about anybody out there to protect Jackson Arnold and create running lanes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. The layup to me is Devon Mitchell. I genuinely believe that he is the most talented tight end in that room. Um, Regardless of the lack of experience, he has the potential to be Oklahoma's version of uh, Lucas for Arkansas last year. He was a very talented freshman up until he got hurt and looked like he was going to be one of the better tight ends in the country behind, you know, a very select group of guys like Brock Bowers. On the offensive line, I'm going to go with um, a guy from the 2023 class that is forgotten about a lot, Heath Ozida. He
Yeah,
has gotten bigger. He under part of the program now for a year, or even uh, Heath Ozida. Who's the other offensive tackle that came in with them? Logan Howland. Someone, either of those guys, I think could really compete for one of the guard spots. But
yeah.
I think the experience is what coaches are going to look for, and if the experienced guys get beat out, that the younger guys will get their opportunities.
It's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, end the video challenge, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do an easy one just like we did for defense. Obviously, we're talking starting offense. Our projections here. Give us your starting offense. I think we'll have a lot of similarities. I'm curious to see what you guys have on the offensive line, and I think Jose has a good question there with the dark horse. So, who is your dark horse for this Oklahoma offense?
Totally. Hit the comment section. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about our starting lineup, who you have projected, the dark horse pick. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, share the video. We really appreciate when you guys do. Subscribers are going up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. That's huge for us. We appreciate when you do. Follow us on our social media. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast. We appreciate you all watching and listening. We'll see you next time.